looking particularly at story, and in particular the stories of Jesus and how he told stories, why he told stories, but also, like, for us, why do we tell stories? What's the importance of our story, and how do we relate to stories as human beings and as people within this community? What do we mean? What do we want to do with them? Are they tools, or are they part of a greater thing that's going on in our lives? So I want to start by talking a little bit about, there's a TED Talk that I shared earlier in the week. So in 2009, the Nigerian writer Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie did this amazing talk called The Danger of a Single Story. And she was talking about her experience in Nigeria growing up, and loving to read and hear stories. And the stories that she was told tended to be about little white European girls from the 50s or something. And that didn't reflect her experience, but it started to impact the kind of stories that she was writing, that she was telling. And she writes this: stories matter. Many stories matter. Stories have been used to dispossess and malign, but stories can also be used to empower and humanize. Stories can break the dignity of a people, but stories can also repair that broken dignity. Power is not just the ability to tell a story about a person, but to make it the definitive story. Show a people as one thing and only one thing, and that is what they become. Now, as I'm reading that, perhaps you're thinking of experiences in your own life when you've been told that there's only a single story. I've heard lots of stories of people that I love that are LGBTQ plus Christians in the church, and they were told that their story was wrong, that their story couldn't possibly be right. It didn't fit the narrative. And perhaps you know that there's a massive importance in being able to shift that script and to say, actually, no, my story matters. It's important. It can be so damaging. And I would say, yes, there's a danger in a single story, but there's also a danger in a manipulated story, in a domesticated story, in a story that's been forced to conform to a mold, to a pattern that fits, that makes everything make sense. Because reality, life is not like that. And I would say also that the way that God relates to story, the way that Jesus told stories, is never about manipulation. And so often human beings can kind of get into that pattern of using stories to manipulate, to conform, and to make a point. And I was reflecting on this earlier in the year about my own story, and growing up in a kind of evangelical Christian context, there was this mold that faith stories were meant to conform to. Before I knew Jesus, my life was crap and I was evil. And then I had this moment and everything changed, and now my life is, maybe it wasn't always saying it's perfect, but my life is so changed. And then that's the conclusion. And I remember as a young person of faith, I was kind of taught to write my story into that pattern, and then something happened. I did something that didn't fit the pattern of the story, or I had a doubt. I did something that was wrong. And I remember literally thinking in my late 20s, like, oh crap, I've ruined my story. How do I tell this story now? It doesn't fit this mold. It doesn't fit this pattern. I had to go back and reframe some of my story. And that has been a really healthy process in my life of recognizing how God relates to me, and maybe how God related to me back then in ways that were stolen from me by a framing of my story that was not really accurate. So why did Jesus tell stories, and how is this all connected? So I'm a real big fan of somebody named Stephen Bevins, who is a Catholic theologian who writes a lot about understanding context, and the context of how we relate to stories of the Bible, and how the stories of the Bible sat in a context. You've heard me talk about that before. But one of the things he writes also about is dialogue, and how God relates to us in conversation. And he makes this really brilliant point. Like I've said earlier, God when Jesus was on earth, he did not perform miracles and tell stories in such a way that kind of closed the conversations down and said, this is the way it needs to be. He invited us into dialogue. And part of that was recognizing that people had to make their own choices and come to conclusions. And it's this push for us to pursue something that's more about wisdom and recognizing that human beings are complex. And as we relate to God and we relate to the words of Jesus over time, we have new perspectives, new insights, new revelations, and that's how it should be. So this new series that we're doing is about Jesus's parables, and we read one of those earlier today. Jesus's parables are basically just short stories that he told, and I think often for those of us that have grown up in church, we can tend to be taught those parables as if they have just this, almost like they're Aesop's fables. They've got this one moralistic message that they want, that they were intended to put across. But actually, in the context of history and culture and what was going on at the time, Jesus was telling those stories as a Jew in a Jewish context. And the parables were not a new thing to Jewish audiences to hear. There are parables that are told throughout the Old Testament, and also they were stories that were told around probably family dinner tables and sitting around a fire, and their point was not to just have one moralistic message that was to teach children right from wrong or something. There's a feminist Jewish theologian named Amy Jill Levine, who writes a lot about a Jewish experience of parables, and she was saying that even if the word para, that comes from the Greek, is this idea of coming alongside, parallel, or even paradox, and how Jewish people would have experienced parables being told would have been actually to be uncomfortable, to push people to look beyond what the obvious initial meaning would be, and to really think. They're bringing out of mystery, even the way that Jesus talks about kingdom throughout the parables. He paints the kingdom with these different stories and different illustrations of everything from sowing seeds like a farmer to a coin being lost. There's all these different angles of what Jesus is talking about that are coming through story. And they're not, Jesus doesn't always explain what he's even talking about. And the story today is interesting that was read because the story that Jesus told, there is a little bit of explanation at the end of it. But Amy Jill Levine was like, it's actually really helpful that the disciples don't, in retelling Jesus' stories in the gospel narratives, they don't always ascribe a meaning, because we see the disciples throughout Jesus' stories as folks that were always grappling to understand themselves. In fact, in the story today, there's another version of it in Mark where Jesus says, do you still not understand what I'm talking about? Jesus is always coaxing these folks along. And so it's a gift to us to mostly be given these stories where we have to engage and we have to ask questions. Amy Jill Levine wrote, reducing parables to a single meaning destroys their aesthetic as well as their ethical potential. This surplus of meaning is how poetry and storytelling work, and it is all to the good. I think that's really important to hang on to, that this form of story and creativity brings out questions. There's another theologian named Amos Wilder who wrote, if the parable is not grasped as extended metaphor, then the reader will look for a teaching or a theme rather than a revelatory shock of insight. I love that. I don't know how many times have you heard a story or read a book or seen a film, and it's the ideas and the realizations come just in these little flashes and these little moments. And I think that's what the parables can offer to us as well, is this idea of how we relate to God that isn't such a binary yes, no answer to our questions. It's a pursuit of knowledge. It's a pursuit of wisdom. It's a pursuit of insight that grows and that it changes over time. So it's really important to root our understanding of what Jesus was sharing in the context that he was sharing it in, and recognize even the form of parables, to be able to engage with them. But I think it's an invitation to us to tell stories that are open and that lead us to discussion rather than to certainty. I'll just finish with this quote from Amy Jill Levine. I like her book, can you tell? She writes, "With regard to Jesus' own presentation, the parables fit his comments about himself and the kingdom he proclaims. In his teachings and his actions, Jesus displays such respect for the people he encounters that he does not spoon-feed them with what can only be understood in the heart and not the head. Parables more often tease us into recognizing what we've already always known, and do so by reframing our vision. The point is less that they reveal something new than they tap into our memories, our values, and our deepest longings. And so they resurrect what is very old and very wise and very precious and often very unsettling." I'll close with that, but that's just, I guess, the challenge for us, is to relate to Jesus' words in a way that allows ourselves to be unsettled and to learn together, and also to relate to each other's stories in a way that we allow people to tell their true stories, and for those stories to be in process, for those stories to be to have unsatisfying endings, because they're not really endings, are they? Our stories continue and they go on. There'll be an opportunity in a little bit to reconvene on Zoom. And I thought what we do, for some of us that want to keep talking about story, and particularly the parable of the sower, which I didn't actually talk a great bit about today, there'll be a group that will be looking at that. And there'll also be other groups that are just having more casual conversations. So please do join us, whatever it is that you fancy doing this afternoon at 5:15.
Each week when we meet together online, we share something called a love feast. It's a way of expressing the sharing and belonging and friendship we have together as followers of Jesus. It's also a way for us to share some of the sense of hospitality and welcome that sharing food together represents for us as a community when we meet in person. There's nearly always some kind of amazing cake involved at Inclusive Gathering, and it's good. There's nothing particularly special about the kind of food we're going to share together today, so just grab whatever you have to hand. I've got some hot chocolate and my obsession, I'm afraid, apples. Jesus quite often shared food with people. I admit one of my favourite stories of Jesus is how Zacchaeus' life was changed just by Jesus saying, I'm going to come and eat with you today. Just that act of saying, I want to eat with you, made Zacchaeus completely reevaluate everything. As far as the story goes, he didn't even seem to actually have eaten with him before things changed. Just even wanting to eat with Zacchaeus changed Zacchaeus' life. We're going to have a short prayer now, so please join me in a prayer. Jesus, we thank you that you're someone who met with people, listened to their stories and became part of their story as they become part of your story. We want to be part of your story and to learn to share our story with you and to share in your story, your life, as we share with each other too. Help us to know that you value us as we are and that you care about our stories, where we're from, where we're going and how we are right now. We come together and share our food, maybe in different places, but in the same heart, with you in this moment. We come in Jesus' name. Amen. So we're going to eat together to put up with my noisy apple, I'm afraid. But I hope that you've had a really lovely time at the service today and that you enjoy the food we're sharing. See, now I wish I'd picked something quiet. It's been really good to share with you. Bless you.
Just wanted to pop in quickly and give a little introduction to this next segment. A few months ago, we were able to use a beautiful poem by Lee Evans, who is part of the LGBTQ plus community in Liverpool. And we've got another one of his poems we're going to share today called Rainbow People, and I hope you enjoy it.
We've been battered and scarred, broken and bruised, thrown behind bars, tortured and used, kicking and fighting, but not out of breath. The giver of life, the keeper from death. So never say die or ever lay down, nor live out a lie and cower from frown. 'Cause society tried, but society lost. The day we stood to be counted and cope with the cost. Of missed invitations from embarrassed friends, and long lost relations with Christmas card pens. Of being put off or never asked back, being the joke but never the laugh. Seldom the host of ever the guest, never acknowledged as good as the rest. Then getting the jobs that others won't do from the don't call us and we'll call you. And is this your friend? It's always the same. Your lover or partner by any other name. Possessed, unclean, cesspool of sin. Church opens its doors, but it won't let us in. Clauses and causes and cautions on sex. They accept an 80s. We wondered what next. But with the 90s and noughties, new fashions and clothes, came a bold revolution. Now anything goes. An alphabetic spaghetti that ends X, Y and Z. A dazzling diversity to spin your head. With freedom to marry and new confidence to love. As the phobic minorities still work hand in glove. With the closets and bigots and hateful few. Determined to destroy everything that we do. So the fight's still not over and it'll never stop. But they won't stem the tide or turn back this clock. 'Cause while our brothers and sisters in this land and afar still suffer brutality for just being who they are, we'll march with pride and bring pressure to bear and find ways of letting each one know we care. And we'll do it with love and fun all the way, 'cause that's how we rock as LBT and gay. We're a rainbow people and each have our own flag. A worldwide family who refuse their red rag. 'Cause we're smarter than that and we still keep it real as we challenge every hang-up and prejudice they feel. Every unjust law or criminal act. Every sick little joke that makes them laugh. We're stronger now, and each one of us winners, and church will discover it needs us sinners. For it's dying and death, 'cause if we got out to love, but we do that in abundance and call everyone bruv. Or sister and mother, father and son, and far from over. We've only just begun. We'll keep passing the baton to each generation in every country and in every nation, from all walks of life, all professions and fads, of whom so many are mums and dads, who'll educate their loving offspring and young on how we as a people are a song to be sung, of courage and strength and vibrant colours, determination and grit, and all of us are warriors. We're all somebody's daughter and somebody's son, and we're no longer afraid or prepared to be won in an unjust battle to keep us down that's doomed to failure and not welcome in our town. So let's keep showing them just how it's done with our wonderful kaleidoscope of love and fun. And as we do, let's remind them of this. Love isn't a germ, it's a wonderful kiss. It's holding hands and protecting each other in complete solidarity with our neighbour and brother across the pond and in strange foreign lands, knowing they too support us as they bravely hold hands. So let's do it for them, and let's do it for us, and let's do it with love and without any fuss, beginning like this, or just marching with pride, knowing as we do our cause is worldwide, and now we're a mighty force to be reckoned. We'll achieve the equality that's always beckoned. We can stand real tall, knowing you and me, we're a part of it all.
So thanks for joining us today. We're going to move the conversation over now to Zoom at 5:15. We're going to try something a little bit different to what we normally do. So we're all going to be joining one Zoom group. I'm putting the link up now, and it's also on the event page on our website for today. What we're thinking is some people will really love to get into a long kind of conversation about story and some of what I shared about earlier. But for some others, we just want to connect and have a casual chat. So we're gonna get together and we're gonna divide up into groups based on what people want to do. So if you want to have a conversation about what we talked about today, one group, there's a casual chat group, and then there's also going to be an opportunity for those who might could really do with maybe a one-to-one chat to have that arranged as well. So I'll see you on Zoom at 5:15. Just wanted to mention quickly, we also have community groups that meet on Zoom. There's about 6 of them going now. We may be starting some more. There's information on our website via this link, and most of them have space. So if you're interested in being part of a group that connects midweek and just, to make friends, just to talk about real stuff, give me a shout on email at newchurchbirmingham@gmail.com, and I can help you get connected with one of those groups. Thanks to those of you who give regularly to help support what we're doing here at Inclusive Gathering. There's never any pressure to do that, but for those of you who might want to contribute to help us keep things going like what we're doing, and also to be able to just respond to needs in the community as they come up, that you can go to inclusivegathering.org.uk/give, and there's opportunities to make either like a one-off gift or to even set up a standing order if that's something that you wanted to do. But again, there's never any pressure to do that, but some of us like to give in that way. So all that said, I forgot, there's something really exciting happening next week. So next week, the Reverend G-Day McCauley from House of Rainbow is going to be with us. Now, G-Day is a fabulous person and a Black, gay, Nigerian Church of England minister, and has done some amazing international work helping to connect particularly Black queer Christians around the world, really, and provided a great support network. And there's so much that we can learn about how to welcome and grow in our inclusion from G-Day. So I'm really grateful that he's coming along. So he's going to be speaking to us in our 4 p.m. gathering here on Facebook Live. But then there's also a Q&A, a live Q&A that G-Day will join us for. And so that will happen at 5:15 on Zoom, but we're asking folks to register for that via Eventbrite just to keep it secure, because sometimes when you do things like this, there's an opportunity for troublemakers to come in, and we want to avoid that as much as possible. But this is the kind of thing where you might want to invite others to come along with you and just join us for being part of a great learning conversation. So we'll look forward to that next week. And then we're going to end now with finally with what we share, a blessing we share at the end of every week. May we live fully, may we love wastefully, and may we have the courage to be all that God has created us to be. See you soon. Oh, I almost hit end the meeting.